idea of what's coming, especially this heat. It's just beginning, right? This heat,
Yeah.
this is not going away. The planet's not going to just all of a sudden cool down. A lot of people said it wouldn't happen. The oceans right now in certain places are 111 degrees.
What?
Um, and that's just not Florida, right? The oceans are superheated. You have places where the concrete, the asphalt is so hot that the tar on the roads has become much like those roads in the Middle East. You know, you step on it and your shoes are stuck to the road, right? Things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
These are very consistent temperatures. The coral in the oceans, they're turning white all over the place. And that comes through excessive heat, which makes the oceans vulnerable to disease. Coral begins to die, plankton dies, algae changes, everything starts to alter in the oceans. That process has already begun. So this heat's extraordinary. It's hitting us from below and above, and all the efforts, Pastor Paul, chemtrail spraying. Of course, chemtrails have side effects. That's what people know them by. But that was actually used as a type of defense, trying to. They were trying desperately to prop up the earth as though everything is normal.
The
The truth,
chemtrails
truth be
was
told,
to try to put like some type of reflectors.
that's right.
You know,
That's right.
I
And
forgot.
that began in World War II. That began in World
Really?
War II to reflect some of the infrared, some of the light rays back out into space. Yeah, because they knew about prophecy. Number one. Now they didn't act on all prophetic things they dug up, but eventually they knew about this. So to dump aluminum-based or metal-based particles in the atmosphere, they already knew it had side effects, and it was worth it. Now that everything is failing, people will see why they were trying to do it. In fact, they're going to come out and show people exactly how and why they were doing what they were doing. I know that some people say, well, they
Really?
want to kill everybody. And a lot of people say they want to kill everybody. That's a very expensive way to kill everybody. They could have, they're not very good at that, are they? If
No, it
that's the
didn't
way they're
work very
doing it.
well. No.
What they were doing was trying to cause conditions to seem normal, right? Right now, it's just like the Gulf of Mexico, right? Too many fires are coming up from the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
You're talking about the water is on fire, right? Because you have gas and oil wells there that have been shut down. They ignite it, right? They're trying to control that. So the oceans are heating. These guys, our signal shield also is failing. Around the Earth is something called a signal shield. Is failing. It's not working out too well, and it's gonna when it completely fails. Boy, then people are going to have a new perspective on the heavens. Period. We won't have that defensive barrier that we've been having for all these years.
So it's sort of like a defense shield of from the radiation coming at us out of space or the sun, or
Well,
what?
a lot, yeah, from the sun, basically from the sun, uh, things from space. This shield, because it's failing, will actually look like somebody threw a rock in a pond, and they'll start to see waves in the clouds. This is going to be seen everywhere.
Hmm.
That's nothing more than this signal shield failing. When it fails completely, lots of things repelled by this signal shield. Once it's because there are viruses right above that. There are things right above that. Now that
Wow.
we're having this disclosure, right, there are organisms that are in the upper atmospheres that will not penetrate that signal shield. It's failing, though, it's not working. And conditions on the Earth are changing too rapidly, and heavy particles are starting to flow into the atmosphere. So we have multiple changes, and these changes, they're going to escalate. Every single piece of activity you can possibly imagine will escalate on the Earth. So these are extremely different times. Oh, and by the way, the waters are at a high temp, right? High temperature.
Yep.
Those ice sheets are not holding up. They are going through a melting process like never before, which indicates to me that water event that will affect the entirety of the Earth is
Yes.
coming faster and you know much faster
So
than
tell us a
previously
little bit about.
calculated.
Okay, tell us a little bit about this water event again. We got new people here as well. What is about to happen?
Well, think of a continent that's actually ice. A huge continent that's actually ice. The ocean's water heat up. It's eroding or eating away at the foundation of this big ice continent, right? So the bottom is melting. And as it melts, the bottom is becoming thinner and thinner till it looks like it's held up by a single, shaft of a wine glass or something like that. When that's totally gone, this continent-sized piece of ice is going to slam to the ocean floor. Now, it's only going to be maybe 100 feet. It'll go down 100 to 200 feet, right? But that's water displacement across the entirety of the earth. Well, and by the way, it's just not one big, huge piece of ice that's like this, right? We have ice sheets that are on the move right now. They've already broken free, but they're floating because they're small. They're on the move. And the Navy is handling that because they thought about bringing icebreakers and everything else on board. That's not going to work. These things stand at least 75, or I say, yeah, about 75 feet above the water. They're
Wow.
floating, right? They're already starting to drift. But you have larger chunks of ice, and it has eroded the bottom, right? They have pulled all they had a site. They have one site. It requires at least 12 to 24 million a year to maintain. They pulled the entire site, all sensors, everything. They evacuated everything out of that area. It was underwater. They were doing core samples of both the soils and the ice to try and calculate when this is going to happen. And so, but they pulled everything out. That research is over. It is now officially over. They pulled everything out, Pascal. Why? Because they expect a collapse. And if they expect a collapse in that area, then we can also expect a collapse in places in our southern hemisphere, parts in our northern hemisphere, large chunks of ice displacing ocean levels all over the world. So that means without an earthquake, without a tsunami, people are going to wake up and they're going to have an inundation of water. You may wake up and go down your front steps and all of a sudden you step right into some water, right? It's also going to be a very stinky situation for inland folks because it will back up sewage systems. I don't think people understand this, but if water breaches a certain level on the lands, all these water treatment centers are going to overflow. And when that happens, the process by which they filter out this water and give it back to everybody is going to be disrupted. So that's going to just double.
It's going to pollute the water. Well, then the water is going to all be, including the drinking water.
Oh yeah, that's where it comes. Well, drinking water is nothing more than recycled wastewater.
Right.
So, but if all that overflows, the treatment plants are not going to work, right?
Yep.
And if that doesn't work, then all water is contaminated just like that, just with a snap of a finger. So these are very real conditions that we face. And it's just not good. Now, this will happen fairly quickly because the oceans are heating up. That was a primary driver of these ice melts below the icebergs, below these continent-sized pieces of ice. It was underneath the water that they did the research to try and find how long do we have. So that water event, it'll likely take place in quite a few places. Also, this is going to have... I'll go ahead and say it. Most people believe that all the water that lakes have come from, rain or mountain runoff water, right?
Yeah.
That's going to expose something within our lakes, right? Some people know this already. They don't talk about it, but some people know this. We have something called, on the earth, there's a layer right below our feet where lakes and stuff fill up from. Just in case you haven't noticed, all lakes have man-made constructed pieces in there to shut off any of this pure water from coming up. This is pure water. It has a specific name. I'm not going to use that name, but it's pure water. And for the most part, it's been reserved for the high and mighty. I'll say that much.
Okay.
But you're looking at enough water, right, where no lake has to dry up. No lake. All they have to do is under the valves. They have put where the dams are built. Not only are dams built, but valves have been put in large caverns have been concreted with control valves. This water that can come up, they did this back in, what was it, the 1810 or something like that. something like that. They refilled a lake in less than 1 hour. It was a huge lake. They refilled it in 1 hour with this pure water, pure water.
So the
So you can
water,
actually drink out of this water, right?
yeah. But
And
how,
there's no
why
microbes, no anything in this
are they
water.
storing this water? You're saying in
No, this is natural. It's natural to the earth.
Okay.
It's in fact, it's where most of the lakes that were formed, they were actually filled up and stay filled up based on that water below, right? Not the rainwater or anything, but the
Okay.
water
Yeah.
below.
Yep.
And but what they did was a long time ago when they moved in here, when they put in the control systems for the water, because that actually stemmed from conflict. They had to cut entire regions off from the water to drive people out of areas, right? So if you can control those resources, people are going to find the lands unfavorable and they're going to move out and go somewhere else. And when they claimed all these different places, well, they just locked them down, right? So but that water's still there. Now, if we have this event, this water event, uh, those valves are going to have sort of like negative pressure, right? Which means they're not going to hold. And they know they're not going to hold. At that point, we're going to have secondary flooding caused from the interior of these continents, right? So water will come from the interior of these continents. And then, of course, over time, it'll settle out. So the earth is not going to be destroyed by water. We're just going to have a water